if I think back, I reckon you guys were one of the first Strata companies that we got involved with heavily.
This is a question that we get a lot, right?
And I'm pretty confident that this is not going to be a small one.
How did you learn about what's Strata and what's not?
We need to dig up this road. You've got to fault in this ground somewhere.
Welcome to another episode of Strata Talk with United Strata Solutions. Today we've got Ahmad from Radi Electrical. Thanks, Ahmad, for joining us today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
So let's talk a little bit about Radi Electrical. So where did it all start?
Yeah, easy. So Dad started the business back in 1999. That's how it all started with him, and from there it evolved. About 2008, I got involved in the business, and 2012 we started Radi Pty Ltd.
Okay, so when you got involved, that was straight out of school?
Yep, straight out of school, straight into TAFE, doing the electrical trade, and as a second year apprentice, I got involved in the business side of things.
Excellent. So then how did you bring it from that stage to where you are now? And is Dad still in the business?
No, Dad's not involved in the business really anymore. It's evolved a lot since 2008. It's got a journey of its own. It's been an interesting journey. So yeah, it has evolved dramatically since then.
So from humble beginnings, how many people do you have running?
At the moment, we're probably a combined team of about 33.
33, wow.
So yeah, it's awesome.
And how many trucks or vans do you have on the road?
I think we're up to 13 vans and trucks on the road at the moment. And I think there's 2 on order at the moment. So we are planning on expanding. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So where's your service location? Are you based in a specific area or?
Yep, so we're based, our head office is in Smeaton Grange. All our techs are all over Sydney and even New South Wales to a point. So we've got a lot of national clients. They expect us to manage them across New South Wales and some even interstate. So yeah, we're based in Smeaton Grange. We like it here because we can get to Wollongong real easily, we can get to Canberra real easy, we can get to Katoomba, Blue Mountain, Central Coast and cover all of Sydney. So yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. So I've seen on your website that you've got a response time as well. You've got a promised response time. So if someone gives you a call and say, look, we've got an emergency, lights are out, whatever it is, what sort of response time can we expect from Radi?
So our KPI that we uphold is a 1 hour response time for what we call P1 emergencies.
Okay.
So this is why hence clients like Service New South Wales or your ambulance, fire brigades, those type of people like using people like us because we guarantee a 1 hour response time 24/7, 7 days a week when you provide that call.
Can you give me an example, 1 or 2 examples of what is a P1 emergency?
I'll give you something. We had one, I think it was last weekend or the weekend before, where a unit ran out of power. When that first, not ran out, but the power got cut off. So when that call came in, we initially triaged it and we thought it's only one unit. It might be able to wait to the Monday, you know what I mean? Just there was no rush. But then 10 minutes later, another unit, 10 minutes later, another unit, and we end up finding out it's pretty much half the complex had no power due to a damaged underground fault. So therefore we mobilised, I think, about 6 or 7 techs on a Sunday. On a Sunday, to ensure we ran temporary cabling to each individual unit and get them online until further investigations, and that's still ongoing now at the moment. So yeah.
So when you're doing, you spoke about triage. So when you're trying to figure out the problem, you're still on the phone. How do you know if it's something to do with the building itself and its electrical systems versus Endeavour Energy, for example, or electrical supplier?
Yeah.
So what's
that's a good question. So that comes with years of experience. So when we triage, we don't just triage if it's a strata problem or a non-strata problem. We also triage, is it deemed as an emergency? Because obviously with emergencies, there's additional costs involved. There's minimal call outs. We don't want to just be charging unnecessary. So sometimes if someone calls and goes, half my lights aren't working in my unit, we go, it's 12 o'clock on a Sunday. You can probably wait a couple of hours until it's cost normal rates. But then we also ask certain questions. Is it individual unit problem or is it greater? So from the questions that we ask, we kind of know the feedback we're getting, and then we can kind of direct them. It's a strata related issue or a non-strata related issue.
So just on that, we'll take one step back. So how did you actually get into the strata world? Being a contractor that works in strata complexes. Take me back a little bit and how you got involved in that and how you're finding it at the moment.
Okay, so to take you back, obviously when you first start a business or you're trying to build something, with respect, you kind of take on anything you can get, you know, you're just trying to get money into the door. And then over time you evolve into what you like doing or what you don't like doing. I guess when we started Radi, Dad always was a service-based business. That's how he started. He used to do ovens and cooktops and things like that. And then we obviously known you and your mum from your early days, even from your beginnings when you guys first started. And you guys were obviously after reliable contractors.
Yes.
So we got to build that relationship and start with you guys. If I think back, I reckon you guys were one of the first strata companies that we got involved with heavily. So we probably weren't introduced to that space until we worked with you guys. And then over time that evolves and you start dealing with other strata companies. So yeah.
And I must say, you did play a crucial role in our business as well in delivering that service to the clients, because from a strata management's point of view, whoever we send on site is a direct reflection of our business as well.
Yeah.
So if I've got tradies turning up on site, not dressed well, you know, it really reflects badly on United Strata and whoever is sending you out, really.
That's something that we focus on, and I'm glad that you realise that, because we focus on that heavily, because we say to our techs or anyone that when you send a job to Radi, the client doesn't know Radi. The client knows United Strata.
Correct.
And United Strata's made that choice to send Radi. So if someone doesn't represent you guys correctly, the client doesn't really care about saying, hey, who's these Radi guys? It's more, hey, United Strata, you sent me these guys out. It's your problem. So yeah, we're very mindful of that.
So now we've established how you got into the Strata. How did you learn about what's Strata and what's not? Because, for example, like
you learn the hard way.
This is a question that we get a lot, right? So, and with our trades, what we like to ensure to our clients as well is that when they're out on site, they know, maybe not specifically for that site, but in general terms, they know what should be Strata and what's not covered. Because the last thing we want also is the trade's going to do all this work and the owners corporation get a bill and say, hold on a minute, none of this is, covered under Strata. So essentially, you working in Strata and all those years of experience, is there a specific way that you've come to learn how to just,
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say, but look, you don't always get them right, but over time you learn from your mistakes, I guess. So we've probably made plenty of mistakes where we've done work thinking it is a Strata related job, and then learnt the hard way by having that conversation with the Strata manager on a Monday, and we're trying to triage that situation and backtrack. So I'm sure there's been plenty of situations where we might have not even been paid, unfortunately, for whatever reason, because it's not a Strata related issue. And we've grown over the years, and now we're very clear on what's Strata and not Strata. And if it's not clear, then we just make the decision to probably not proceed until that's made clear.
And that's more so for emergency jobs, because if you're getting sent a work order from the Strata manager, we've already determined that it is a Strata.
But you can get caught out in those situations where you guys are told one thing over the phone, and we get there and they try to drag you somewhere else. So even training our technicians of where that line is drawn, and if what we call scope creep or scope change happens on site, that they've caught us and ensure that scope change is not going to impact anything.
So your techs while on site, they'll give you a quick call, or
so we train them not to have any negative conversations with the clients or tenants on site. So if we feel like scope is changing, don't start having that discussion, or which can turn into an argument with them. Just call us, tell us what the scope change might be, and then we'll make that decision to continue or don't continue.
Yep. Okay. In Strata buildings, what's different working within a Strata building compared to working in a school, which I believe that you do a few schools, major retail places? What is the difference in that landscape there?
If I can be respectful, it's probably...
Well, we're Strata talk here, so nothing's off the table. Be open.
Yeah, I've got no problems being open, trust me. But I guess over the years, we've learnt not all clients are our clients, especially with the level of service that we uphold and deliver. So the difference I find with not all Strata buildings, but some Strata buildings compared to our major retails or our schools and stuff, is too many people sometimes are involved in decision making. So that creates delays. It creates too many arguments, and people have their own opinion, where in a major retail client, there's certain fixed people that make a decision, and those decisions are made pretty quickly because it has a greater impact on the end of the property or whatever. So, and they have, I find, for some reason, greater trust because they come from a professional background, so things are less challenged and questioned, and you got to justify every little step. Where in the Strata space, I feel like we're always like one Strata community member will ask a question, then we'll answer that, and then and you think, okay, we're going to go ahead now, and then the next one will ask another question, and it just causes delays in sometimes like we just need to get this done. It's an emergency, you know what I mean? Let's just get it done. And we're very transparent in our invoicing, in everything. So it's like it's all going to be justifiable. It's not like we're just going to slap a bill at the end of the day. Where in a school, when they need something, they just make a phone call and they're like, we need to get you guys out here. The rates are set, everything is transparent. They trust in us. We just get it done. We're in the Strata space. Majority I find that we deal with, it's this. Yeah, I think the answer is there's too many people sometimes involved in making decisions, and that causes frustration.
Yeah, and I guess from a Strata manager's point of view, that's something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, not only on electrical decisions, but every decision. Yep. So we're here to take the owners corporation and the Strata committee their decisions. We're here to guide them through that. But at the end of the day, it's their decision that they need to make, one way or another. So in saying that, I mean, do you think there's better ways of trying to improve that workflow? I mean, what we're trying to implement in our office is to have one committee member as a spokesperson for the committee. So instead of having, let's say we have a committee of 9 people, and you'll have 9 different opinions, essentially. So instead of going back and forth with all those 9 people, it's good to just have either a quick Strata committee meeting or, just work over the email if it's something urgent, and elect one person on the Strata committee to go, hey, United Strata, this is the decision we've come to, let Radi Electrical know.
Yeah, look, I guess that's a whole different conversation in itself. You can get real deep into that, but something some of our clients do to mitigate that. So when you can't make decisions on the spot, what that causes is sometimes additional cost. So we get out to site, and let's just say, for an argument's sake, there's an exhaust fan that's not working, right? And the cost might be $800 to get it fixed. I know from a Strata space wise, we can't give our guys a green light on the spot to proceed with that. You'd have to get some kind of pre-approvals. Yep. Therefore, we're trying to call Strata managers. Strata managers are super busy. We all know that, because they're copying a million things. Then we've got to make a decision. Do we leave site and then put a quote in, which is what normally happens? Then we've got to leave site, put a proposal in, now re-attend site. Now that's additional cost to re-attend site. Yep. You know what I mean? And that, to me, and then there's a fan not working. Now we're going to create mold damage, because, you know what I mean? Where I find where other clients, especially in the commercial space, we've got higher limits to proceed, so that could be an option. But it's not just higher limits and do whatever you want. It's higher limits with clear transparency. So hourly rates are fixed. We agree on our hourly rates. Markup on materials is fixed, so there's no hidden cost. So if a client tomorrow goes to me, hey, show me that proof, like in the school space, you've got to show evidence of any invoice over a certain amount, and I think it's only $50. So anything over $50, you've got to submit
$50.
You've got to submit the original invoice. Okay. Right. So again, transparency is key. Yep. The more transparent you can be, even to the point where they've got sign in and sign out QR codes on sites. So if you say you were there for 3 hours, you've got to sign in and sign out QR code. We go one step further. Majority of our vehicles are GPS tracked. So if any time anyone questions, hey, were you seriously there for 3 hours? I saw them disappear for 45 minutes. We can show them evidence of our GPS trackers going, they attended site at 7 a.m. They were there for an hour. They found the fault. They drove down to the nearest wholesaler or Bunnings or whatever. They were there. They got the materials. They came back and they continued on. And we can prove that. And again, that's part of our transparency that we like to be. So those things in those spaces allow us to flow with the job, get it done, get it closed out, and move on without causing you more problems or more work, I should say, and creating potential worse outcomes on site. Because if you leave a fan not working, you're just going to create another problem.
Yeah. And I know with you, your reports are great, and you take before and after photos as well. So that helps us as well, because we're not on site. Yeah, and we're trusting that the people that we use are trustworthy.
Yep.
They're giving us the correct information, and that then flows on to what we advise to the owners corporation and the Strata committee. So having photos before and after, so we can understand exactly what's been happening and what was repaired, what was the issue, and why it had to be done. That's
Yeah, well, that's something we're trying to.
that's something
Yeah,
that's
we're trying to push as an industry standard.
Yep.
I hate seeing people just send an invoice saying work completed.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? If they say PowerPoint work completed and here's an amount, and again that goes back to our transparency. It's not about trust. You can say you trust people. It's not about trust or not trust people. It's about being transparent enough that no questions are asked, and if a question is asked, it's answered. So we always explain to our guys, explain the whole story to me. Don't just tell me you replaced a fan. Explain to me, I arrived on site, I went and checked in, we knocked on unit 12, we had to wait 15 minutes because unit 12 wasn't home yet. Explain all that as a story, so then when someone looks at a thing and goes, you were there for 2 hours, like we had one at a school the other day where they had to change a timer in a bathroom, and it was 2.5 hours. And in the office, we're like, 2.5 hours to change a timer? Like there must be something. But when we read the description, he had to wait for the GA for half an hour. It was a female toilet, so then they had to find a female teacher. They had to empty the toilet out. Then they had to go to another toilet, which is a female toilet, to confirm what the adjustment of that timer is in another female to make sure they're the same. And hence why it took, where anyone just read replace timer 2.5 hours, they're like, come on, you're taking the mickey out of me. But because it's all explained in the job description,
that's a good point.
you know, even though you might show a photo before and after, it's not explaining the GA was, you know, in another meeting, you had to wait for a female teacher, and therefore, okay, that's why it took 2.5 hours. So that's part of our transparency, and that's only evolved over the years. We didn't start with that straight away. We used to just send invoices out, then we realized, hey, we need before and after photos. We started doing before and after photos. And the more we kept getting challenged and questioned on things, the more we're trying to tune our processes to ensure that the transparency is just greater and greater.
Yep, excellent. If we can take a sidestep now and just go back to the Strata complexes and give us a little information. So what we're aiming these videos to is also education in relation to the electrical systems itself. So I mean, not everyone knows what a GPO is, what an RCD is, all these words. Okay, so I'm not expecting you to give us the full TAFE certification, but if you can give us a quick education, like, okay, some of the common things that you see in a Strata complex, what they are, what they're used for, and what are the risks if they're not maintained properly, basically.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because we see ourselves as an authority within the industry, and to be an authority in an industry, I find educating is our responsibility. Right, so even doing this right now, the purpose of us doing this is to educate the industry and to provide value back to the industry. So something that we do, for example, is we do educational seminars for Strata managers. So we go, how do we get into the community? We educate the Strata managers. The more we can educate Strata managers, the more things can change over time in the industry. Something that lacks in the Strata space is compliance. Yes, there are some certain compliances that are taken real serious, but they're only taken serious once external governance are making you guys take it serious. So
for example, fire safety.
You go back 4 years ago, or maybe even less, no one was really taking AFSSs too serious.
There's been major change.
You know what I mean? So in the last 4 years, fire is now Strata's biggest challenge, because after certain incidences that caused that you guys have been watched closely. But there are a lot of other compliance things that are mandatory, that aren't taken serious in the Strata space, that frustrate me, as you probably can hear my voice, but is not...
We're hitting the passion.
Yeah, the passions, where to use your question about the retail clients and the schools, they don't need external governance on them to chase them up on that stuff, because they understand the importance of that. Where I find in the Strata space, until they're bitten, until they've hurt, like they've been directly impacted by something, they're like, well, why am I getting my RCDs tested? Or why am I getting my switchboards inspected? Or why do I need to do thermal imaging? Where in RCD testing, and RCDs are mandatory. There's a whole course that we do for Strata managers called RCDs. What are they, how they work, and all that. So it's a 45-minute class that we do. But to give you a rundown of an RCD, a safety switch.
Pause you 1 second. Sorry, can Strata community members and owners attend that course as well, or is that just for Strata
look, no one's asked us that before, but we're always open to that. So if community members want to join those, maybe you can be the first one that does it for your community members, something we can talk about afterwards. But we focus on Strata managers first, because we feel like we need to educate the the manager in charge, because at the end of the day, the manager in charge is the one responsible
Correct.
for their sites.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're the ones feeding that back to the
Correct.
clients.
And the more
So,
you know, the more you can feed back.
okay. All right. So an RCD safety switch.
Yep.
Essentially, if we put a screwdriver in a power point, that RCD is going to trip
Yep. If it's working correctly, yep.
if it's working correctly, and we won't be electrocuted.
You'd hope not. Yeah.
That's
The aim. That's the essence. RCDs are there to protect lives.
Okay.
Right. It's you can't explain it any more than that.
All right.
How they work, it's a completely different. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's also, it's not just about having RCDs. You got to emphasize that they must be tested, and the regularity of testing depends on the environment that it's placed in. Right. So depending on the environment that it's placed in, will then determine how regular they need to be tested. In the Strata space, as a rule of thumb, I'll take 12 monthly, right? They should be tested 12 monthly, because there's no point having an RC. Some clients go, yeah, but we got safety switches. We got them upgraded 5 years ago. Yeah, sweet, you got them upgraded 5 years ago. How can you ensure that that safety device actually is doing its job? Yeah, that's why you get your car regoed. And when you go get your car slipped, or whatever they call it, what's the most important thing they check? They check the brakes of the car. Because if the brakes don't work, you're going to crash into someone. And that's probably the most key thing they check. Yeah, they check headlights and other things or whatever, but they check the brakes, you know what I mean? And that's done every year. So it's the same thing with an RCD. Yes, you've got it, but how do you ensure that it's actually working and it's operating correctly to what it's designed?
Apart from RCDs, what else should we be looking at in strata complexes to be able to ensure that everything's running smoothly?
Yep, so thermal imaging is another one. That's not a compulsory requirement, depending on the site. Some sites it is, and it more falls under the insurance, depending on the insurance cover they've got. Some insurance covers require 12 monthly thermal imaging done. And thermal imaging is one of those great things. It's a very low cost and an extremely impactful test to do every year, which allows you to see things that the naked eye can't see. So we're looking for hotspots, we're looking for joint, we're looking for, and we've got ample examples of sites that if they had simply spent $150 or less on a thermal scan, would have saved themselves $30,000. Because by the time a thermal issue goes wrong, it's normally severely wrong, and it's got a lot of costs involved. So
it causes fire, right?
Most of the times it causes fire, it causes major outages, and it's a roll-on effect. So thermal scanning, again, like I said, it's mandatory only in certain circumstances, not all strata sites. Other mandatory things, obviously it's not just electrical, so people know about fire. There's other things, RCDs. We find switchboard inspections is also mandatory, and it's highly recommended.
So what can we find with a switchboard inspection? What are you looking out for?
Yep. So we're just completing some for a large retailer. We're going across all the New South Wales, and they're trying to do an asset collection of all their switchboards, but also they're trying to figure out if their switchboards are compliant.
Right.
So we find sites that have been there for 40 years, and everyone thinks it's all good, but there's exposed cables, the covers are broken, locks aren't working correctly, things over the years have changed its conditions, or rust. We go to a site and we see a rust on the corner of the switchboard. If you don't address that, it's just going to get worse and worse over time, and a simple little metal patch turns into a whole brand new switchboard.
And where does asbestos come in there? Because I know a lot of switchboards, particularly older ones, they contain asbestos. So how do you deal with that?
So you only do what you need to do, right? So if the switchboard is compliant to a certain degree and it's got asbestos, and you flag it, but you don't need to go change it. But it's good to know, hey, this switchboard, well,
as long as it's not disturbed.
Correct, but to go back one, to understand your assets on your site, then allow you to future plan your site. So if we're doing a switchboard inspection and we look at the switchboard, it's what we call a quick lag switchboard, and it's a brand, it's a very popular brand back in the days, and that product's obsolete. So if you have something faulty in that, you most likely can't find replacement parts. So then we flag it and we say, hey, you've got a switchboard here that's an obsolete switchboard. It's going to cost $7,000 to replace, for argument's sake. Now let's budget, right, for to program that to happen in 2 years' time. So let's raise the funds that we need to. So in 2 years' time, we can change it. You know what I mean? Same thing, like to go back to your asbestos question. Yes, there's a switchboard here with asbestos. At the moment, it's okay. But hey, they're looking at doing EV chargers, right? Therefore, we need to consider, let's get this sorted before they do that. What are you smiling about?
I'm smiling because my next question was going to be the future.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do you see the future of the strata buildings in terms of electrical going? And you've just raised EV chargers, so that's something that's very prominent in the space of strata industry at the moment. A lot of people are getting EV cars. We're getting asked to get packages for EV chargers and different options. Um, you know, where strata differs from the normal house is they don't always have their own garage. They don't always have their ability to put in a battery pack and everything else. So essentially, we need to look at different sort of solutions to be able to offer, option A, B, or C to the Strata Committee and to the Owners Corporation. So do you do anything in that space, the EV charging, and what can you tell us about that?
So EV charging is also another course that we do for Strata managers that explains EV charging and what to know and how to approach when clients ask for EVs. So again, that's something that we've built over years where we've realised the committee goes, hey, we want EVs, but then what's the next steps? Because it's not as simple as saying, just get a quote, right? Because every site is different and there are different solutions for different sites. So what we propose and what we work with our strata managers on is when a site identifies they want EV, there's a process we go through. First of all, we get an understanding of how many people and when that rollout is expected to happen. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing that we do is we recommend a site assessment. So then we understand the uniqueness of that site and the potential solutions that can work for that site. And then we recommend a scoping, so that we charge for a scoping of that site. And what that means is we go out to site, we find the right solution for that site, we scope it out, we detail the scoping, so then you guys as the managers can use that scoping to go back to market. So when you go to all the other suppliers, everyone can price apples for apples. It's not you getting 3 different quotes with 3 different solutions, and all it's going to cause is more confusion, right? So we get approached to do the assessment, to then build a scope, and then once we build that scope goes back to market, and we just bid for that work like everyone else bids for that work, you know what I mean? So we find the best approach for Strata and EVs at the moment.
So what have you found to be probably the most popular EV charging solution that you've seen in the strata space?
To be honest with you, every site is different. There's different sizes, there's different complexities, there's different challenges. But what we look at, again, like I said to you, we find out what's the current uptake of EVs and what's the future projection. So you're not trying to go in there and do everything in one hit. So we look at maybe rolling out the infrastructure and having the future infrastructure in there. So as people want EV, it becomes and their cost.
Right.
So we do what is the bare minimum required by based on our understanding of the committee. So they do the infrastructure part. So then you're not having to install everyone's EVs because 5 people might not want EVs and the other 5 do. And then the argument is, why do I need to pay for your EV? I'm sure you've heard that many times. But then the building supplies the bare minimal infrastructure in the car park and whatever, with the cable supports and the switchboards and all that. And then anyone that wants to add their EVs, they pay their own cost to get that EV done.
I've also seen a way where the Owners Corporation actually own the charger.
Yep.
And they charge it out to...
That's another model where people...
So that's another income stream for the Owners Corporation.
If that's what they want to do. But how popular is that in buildings? In majority of the buildings, I don't see that really being feasible.
Yep.
Because then you've got challenges of how long does that car stay in there for? What if people just park and leave their car there? Look, that works good for if you're a cafe in the middle of Dubbo or something and you're trying to attract people driving through to stop and charge their cars. Yeah, awesome idea. In the strata space, depending on where that building is, I don't think you'd want to be attracting random people parking and you're already stuck within, not have enough parking spots.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, and how does solar panels and things like that play into this? Because
that's again another course that we've got for strata managers.
Another course. Is there anything you don't have a course for?
We're trying to figure out. Actually, we're stuck now because we're stuck on finding out more ideas for courses.
Yep.
But to touch on solar, yes, even right now there is an actual government grant for solar. That's Tanya's specialty. It's not my strength.
Because just with that, one of the now Strata, as you probably know, has so many legislation changes, and there's been a number of this year and more to come next year. One of the changes that the government want us to do now as Strata managers is on every annual general meeting, we need to have a motion to revisit the complex of sustainability. Okay, so we need to have a look at all their systems and how it can be more sustainable
Yep.
into the future. So essentially, this is where the solar panels and all that is going to come into play even more so.
That's interesting because we're getting pushed also about sustainability and having a sustainability plan even in our own business over the next 3 years and the stages and that. So it's interesting to hear that Strata's also getting that
Yeah, well,
that
that's a
pressure on
requirement
them.
now. Yep.
Yeah. So it looks. When you say sustainability, I wouldn't straight away go to just solar.
No,
Because
there's a number of
there's a lot of options.
Correct.
And then unfortunately, when it comes to solar and strata, there's a lot of challenges, depending on the roofs and all that kind of stuff. But
bylaws.
correct.
Yeah.
And again, very similar to EVs, there are a number of solutions for solar, and you'd have to do a site-by-site specific assessment. And based on that assessment, you find the right solution, you scope it, and then you go back to market. But there are some interesting ones out there, shared networks where if the site has so much roof space, they can produce enough power to power the whole building, and they sell it back to the individual units. The individual units are already paying for power from the retailers. Why not produce your own power as a committee and sell it back to the tenants, or at least as a bare minimum, power your everyday usage, in your common area. So there are a lot of solutions out there.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd recommend that the committee or the owners corporation look into other than solar panels,
Yep.
right? For sustainability or...
The LED lighting upgrade we find has the biggest impact.
Okay,
And be mindful that is coming to an end. I think it's March or April.
You mean the
next year.
government grant?
The government grant's been already called in New South Wales. It's ending. So we're seeing a massive push now. A lot of sites are coming out of the woodworks, and let's get this done, because you're saving. Our findings are 30 to 50, 80% sometimes on the cost of the rollout, and then your payback sometimes 18 months to 24 months. And then those products, if you're using the right products, they're 5 years warranty. So therefore then all your lighting is covered for 5 years, and you're making a significant savings on energy. So be mindful that is coming to an end. So any sites that are looking at getting it done, get onto it quick. There's other stuff like hot water units, looking at their efficiencies, cooling and heating. What are the efficiencies of those at the moment? Old units obviously not efficient. You can make great savings, and there are rebates in certain areas that can be considered. Sustainability is large. There's a lot of stuff that people don't even think about. Ventilation, sunlight. There's so many different ways of making an impact on sustainability.
Oh, that's good. All right. Change it up a little bit.
Okay.
If you can tell me one story, just a light-hearted story in Strata that you've experienced, or something that sticks out.
Are you talking about emergencies? Are you referring
Yeah, maybe
to
an emergency that you've had to go above and beyond, or...
beyond? I'll use you guys as an example, because one that comes to mind every time I think of you guys is, I don't know how long ago this was, it might have been a year or two. I don't know if you recall Liberty Grove. We've had that phone call, there was issues with the lifts not working, or there was something weird happening in that building.
Yep.
And I don't know, you correct, it's a large building. How many units in that building?
There's roughly 70 in that particular building that we're talking about.
So it's a decent sized
Yep.
building that impacts a decent number of people in that building. So we got a phone call. I think you guys tried to call Osgrid first, who attended site, couldn't really figure out what was going on, called us to go out there and see what's going on. Our guys attended site, and it was one of those faults that you don't really commonly see. So I was even having our technicians question their readings and findings that they were getting. Long story short, we then were pretty confident that there was a major fault outside the building, who sits in a larger area, private area,
community title.
a community
Yep.
title. So it has a roll-on effect, but we believe that the cable in the street somewhere was damaged, and we did enough testing that we were pretty confident that was the case. And to make a call like that, is not light because you're telling people that you got to dig up a road.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember calling you. I think it was on the weekend. It was either what we call a Friday afternoon special, or you know, what I mean, they always happen on a Friday afternoon just before we're trying to knock off. And I remember calling you, going, mate, Steph, we've done our checks, and I've double checked with our team, and I'm pretty confident that this is not going to be a small one, and we need to dig up this road. You got a fault in this ground somewhere. And then it became, I think, the challenge of you said before there was a committee or whatever you guys called it in the Strata scheme. So it wasn't just a decision that you and your committee of that building had to make. It was a much larger decision. But then obviously everyone else has not been impacted, but these 50 units are dramatically impacted with no power. And we made the decision that night to frantically get generators on site, large generator to power the whole building, get cabling down to the basement. And our boys still laugh about it sometimes. I remember seeing a few guys there, and by, I reckon it was 10 p.m. that night, we had the site safely running all of generators. And then I think that then dragged on because decisions had to be made, and generators aren't cheap to run. I remember that generator.
I remember the fuel cost for that.
Yeah,
And
fuel cost is always
through the roof.
Yeah, fuel cost is always underestimated. Whenever I hear there's a generator on site, people are like, oh, it's just a generator. But when the fuel costs are crazy.
I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, the fuel truck was coming, I think, once every couple of days.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that came out daily to every second day. And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of fuel. So I reckon we would have been spending close to 30 to 50 grand a month on fuel on that side, if I recall correctly. It wasn't cheap. And yeah, so that was an interesting one. And that's where we shine. When things like that happen, we just kick into gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you need a generator.
And there were a number of trades that were involved with that as well, going forward to be able to get all this done, you know, the excavators and all
correct.
that sort of
There's a few trades we had to manage to ensure it was done efficiently and as quick as possible.
Yeah. And in closing, 2 questions. So the first one is, what advice can you provide to other service providers that are in the strata industry or looking to get into the strata industry as a service provider yourself?
Yeah, look, the strata space is a unique space. Like you touched on earlier, understanding what is a strata related issue and what's not, that in itself is a challenge, and ensuring you have a clear clarity on that, and you do that with obviously communication with the strata manager and learning that over time. And another key that I find a lot of our strata managers, when they talk about other trades that they're frustrated with, the word communication always comes up. So the lack of communication, communicate as much as you can. All our systems and processes, our key focus in our business is communicate. When you get a work order, communicate straight away that you've received it. Just acknowledge, hey, I've received the work order. Hey, I've spoken to Mrs. Jones. Hey, she's not available till next Wednesday. We've booked her in on Wednesday. Hey, the parts aren't available for another week. Don't just assume people know. Communication is key.
Yeah. I can tell you as a strata manager, that is probably the most important thing in what we do. Because we need to know what's happening on site. We need to know that once we've sent that work order to yourself or whoever it is, that they've made contact with our client. Because if they don't, then it looks like we haven't even sent the work order.
And that's another thing, that when we receive a work order, our KPI is that within half an hour, that person is contacted. And the reason we have that KPI is because we understand when Mrs. Jones calls United Strata with a problem, if I don't call Mrs. Jones back for another day, that's going to look like that United Strata did not call me or let me know. But when she's just spoken to you, you've efficiently sent the work order to us. We've contacted her within half an hour. It's normally a lot less. She's showing, wow, I literally just called United Strata. I just told my fault, and you guys are calling me already. It, you know, I mean, makes everyone happy.
Looks you.
And most importantly, makes you guys look good, and that you're doing your job. So yeah.
All right, and the last question: what do you wish more owners in Strata knew?
Yeah, look, they'll probably go back to our comments about solar and our comments about EV. I hate when we just get work orders of, quote request, we want to do this, especially when it major works. I wish people had just invest a bit of money, it's not much, in scoping work and getting a clear understanding of what they're trying to achieve and setting parameters around that. So product, clear scoping. So then when they're getting quotes, they're getting apples for apples, like any other construction site or council. Council don't just send us a quote worker saying install lights in our common area. No, they've scoped the work. They understand the challenges that might be facing. They tell you what brand products they want to use, how they want everything run, and then obviously we have our input to it. But it narrows down to ensure everyone's quoting like for like. I wish in Strata space there was more of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Ahmed, for your time. Now, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, would you like to share your website?
It's very simple. It's just radi.com.au. Can't get any easier than
phone
that.
number? They can find that on-
1-800-212-309, and that's Radi, RADI.
All right. Thanks again, Ahmed. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Cheers, man.
See ya.